Our next presenters are David Umbrella and Veronica Cantu. David Umbrella was born and raised in San Antonio, a U.S. Navy veteran, and has his Master of Science in Water Resource Science and Technology. He's been working with SAWS for 2 years and is part of the PFAS monitoring, led service line inventory, and monitoring compliance teams. Veronica Cantu earned her bachelor's degree in chemistry from Texas Lutheran University and has worked in wastewater industry for over 20 years. Her experience includes laboratory testing, regulatory compliance support, legislative analysis, and field staff coordination. She was integral in the development of SAWS' dead-end main flushing program and continues to support various projects across SAWS. Please welcome David Umbrella and Veronica Cantu.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having us. Today we're going to be talking about how we compiled a service line inventory for a system as big as SAWS. David and I are going to take you through the approach we took, some of the challenges that we came across, and hopefully by the end of it, you'll see how our public communication was instrumental and became one of our more powerful tools in filling in our inventory. So a reminder of why we do the work that we do here as water professionals, right? The purpose of LCRR is to improve public health, right, for the consumers. So EPA has a simple approach of getting the lead out, right? We find it and we remove it. And as we do that, we communicate with the public to keep them informed and engaged. So as we get into the multiple requirements for LCRR, our focus is on the inventory here. And one of the biggest challenges that we find as water systems for the inventory is dealing with the hurdle of split ownership, right? We own our side, of course, and then dealing with the customer can be kind of tricky, getting that information and filling in the inventory. So it's like having to solve a puzzle, but we don't have quite all the pieces. Where are we in the big picture for the regulatory timeline? Right, we've already passed the LCRR compliance last year, and then looking ahead, next up is LCRI compliance date in 2027, just about 2 years out, and that's for now. As things evolve with EPA, that could change, but so far that's what we're looking at. So with that compliance date, we have a lot of rules around disturbances and the risk mitigation for those. Also the schools and childcare program, the 10-year replacement program. So we have a lot of rules coming up with LCRI, and all of that to be completed by 2037. So TCEQ, those 9.3 million service lines that you have, let's see. I guess we should know everything about those 9.3 million. All right, a little bit about our city. Nice picture of the Riverwalk. We also have 5 NBA championships. I just wanted to sneak that in there while I have the floor. Houston and Dallas don't. Okay, so actually about our system, we service 2 million people. We have 6 PWSs that recently were integrated into one massive mega system. And we cover 640,000 service lines. So 2 million people, 6 PWSs, 640,000 service lines. And despite all that, we still can't get an NFL team or a baseball team or something. Okay, so as you can see, it's starting to seem like a huge undertaking. So we hired Arcadis to help us out with this huge task of the inventory. And what we found is that over half of our lines are categorized as unknown. So that's the starting point. If you look at the map, it's just the visual representation of that. The yellow would be all the unknown area, and the dark green would be non-lead. There's a little sprinkle of red dots in the middle, that's GRR. And then we don't have any lead on the map because we don't have any records of that. If you look at the customer side figure, 350,000 customer side unknowns. So it's really shaping up to be kind of this huge, massive communication effort. So we didn't just want to use one single strategy with that 350,000 number. So we came up with a toolbox of variety of strategies. So we had some field strategies and some administrative strategies that we'll get into throughout the presentation. With potholing, as we all know, being extremely expensive. So the most expensive of these strategies. So we're trying to avoid, digging up everyone's yard and also putting the cost of that. So a quick mention here, we're not going to cover in this presentation emerging technologies. The presentation right after ours, Kirsten here will be presenting on our emerging technology, and that's something you want to stick around for. That's a really cool thing that we worked on. Okay, so onto the field strategies. Okay, of course, we have potholing, but what else did we do aside from potholing? We did some meter box inspections, but particularly we leveraged an AMI meter replacement program that SAWS already had going on. So what they were doing with those meter replacements, they were taking their vac truck, cleaning out the box, swapping out the meter, and so we saw an opportunity there to have crews go out and do an inspection when the box was cleaned. And so I'd say to date we have about 80,000 meter box inspections completed at, I would say, 30% success rate, which, I mean, if you got a 30 on your water license exam, I guess that wouldn't be successful, but we have to remember that the cost of potholing is the most expensive. So that equates to about 25,000 potholing inspections that we didn't have to do. And so from that aspect, that's a win for us. So to go along with our potholing efforts, we have this right of entry, this permission slip that we gain from the homeowner first so that we can be on the property. We started out slow, but it's hard to kind of be there at the same time, find the homeowners. So we switched our strategy a bit. We went out and did the door knocking on evenings and weekends. People are home watching the football games or the Cowboys lose, something like that. But it's, that's when people are home. So we had to kind of adjust our strategy and be there when they were there. So we also had some goodie bags that we, kind of incentivized, getting some signatures from the homeowners. That seemed to help. We have to also keep in mind that our community doesn't all use a computer. Right? So we have our paper forms available as well as our electronic forms. And some additional information that we provided, which was kind of a surprise success, it's like QR code. And what's cool about anything like electronic, you can track it. And so we were able to see and track that this QR code was super effective. People like having information, right away on the spot while they're thinking about it. So you'll see later David talk about a lot of the electronic response and success. One last thing I wanted to say about potholing before I forget. We went out on a meter box inspection at a location where we had an ROE. And we did have the homeowner come out, and he was really upset, and he was really shirtless and angry. And, he came right up to David, was really upset. Said, "You don't have permission to be here. We need to go away." So we produced the ROE and said, "Well, I think we have permission here." And he looked and he said, "Oh, that's my wife. Have a good day." So it was good for us that we had that on hand. We didn't really think we'd need them for anything, but it turned out, well for us to have that. As part of our communication, we came up with these communication cards to leave with the customer after we did any type of inspection, so just the information on what we found there. These cards also were made in English and Spanish, because we have a large Hispanic population. So we had to make sure that we try to reach out to as much of the community as we can. I do want to point out that leak detected box. That was a lessons learned, I think, that we added later. We first paid to repair a leak that was already existing, but because we didn't have any documentation of that, we ended up footing the bill. So after that, we did that pre-check before the meter box inspection, so we were covered. All right, on to our administrative strategies. It's worth a mention here that we did at the beginning of the project, we did get a plumbing ordinance change. We worked with City Council to do that. That particular strategy fell flat for us because we don't have the enforcement authority to do that. So, it was a good idea, but we didn't get any response out of that one. Okay, on to predictive model, which probably a lot of systems are using or at least familiar with. So like you all, we used the predictive model to prioritize our field investigations to the high-risk areas first, as you can see in the center, the older part of our city. It just helped us to kind of focus our resources where they were needed the most. So here, it's kind of a little history about SAWS. I think in the morning they said everyone knows SAWS, but SAWS has not been around for a super long time as SAWS. We started out as the San Antonio Water Supply Company, evolved into the City Water Board, and then alongside the City Water Board was a sister entity, but separate, as the wastewater side. We also had a reuse side. So 3 different entities in San Antonio, and sometimes would be kind of competing interests. So in 1992, those 3 agencies were combined to form SAWS. Thereafter, in 2012, the legislature dissolved Bear Met, which is why at the beginning you saw those multiple PWSs that we have. We took over Bear Met in 2012. So with all these legacy entities, we have kind of a challenge finding all the records, all the paper records, electronic records with these multiple agencies. And those are actually a couple of our actual tap slips. One of them from 1896, so nearly 100 years before SAWS was born. So once we got all the boxes out, we started to find all the records. I'd say there was maybe 30-something boxes with thousands of records in each box. So we had to hire a team of 6 temporary employees to help us digitize all these records. And it took those 6 temps 2 years to just working on digitizing these records. So that was the very first thing we did. Okay, so on to our outreach. Right, we launched Project LED, which is a SAWS one-stop shop for the customer. Right, anything they might need with like do-it-yourself videos, the map is there. Any of the forms they might need, those are there. So that was a nice tool to begin, for the customer. But then we started working with our communications department to get the word out about what we were doing. And so we used social media, multiple social media outlets, and David will get into that in a little bit. We also used TV and radio, so regular media, right? We put things out on multiple TV stations, also in English and in Spanish, locally and statewide. So that particular outreach effort started to become huge. So continuing to work with our communications department, that's one of the benefits of being a big organization like ours, is we have our own communications department that, they have pretty typical strategies that we're not used to using, but they know will work. So they have their strategies, but they also help us communicate our message clearly to our customers. And they also helped us with the bilingual, with the translation in English and Spanish. Some of the other part of the effort was also working with internal departments as well as other community partners like HOAs. We had the Board of Realtors, City Council. So we really pushed out as much as we could to see what we could get back. So David, so with that, I'll turn it over to David and he'll get into the specifics of what we worked on.
Thank you, Veronica. So just like every other PWS in the nation, in October of last year, we sent out our initial customer notifications. Pictured here is an example of the letter that we sent out to all of our customers. We sent out about 189,000 physical letters to customers throughout San Antonio. As Veronica mentioned earlier, included on each of those letters was a QR code for customers to scan, and it would direct them to the Project Led website where they could have hopefully all of their questions answered. We also included a link to the website there at the bottom of the letter, the Project Led hotline, which was a dedicated phone line for our offices, and a dedicated email inbox for any led or project-led questions or concerns a customer might have. When the initial notifications went out, it was a challenge on its own. With a city the size of San Antonio, sending out all those letters was too big of a task even for our in-house mailing and printing department. So we went through the typical bidding process to different printing contractors. Once we found one, they were a little concerned with the volume that we were going to be needing from them. After a few discussions, we finally, they gave us the confidence in choosing them that they would be able to meet our demands. We also worked with them to develop sort of custom envelopes that had both the SAWS and the Project Led logos on them. Brand recognition for Project Led was very important to us as part of this program. So aside from the letters, we also sent out 209,000 emails for customers that we had valid emails for. Out of those emails, about 24,000 were sent back for various reasons. They were either marked as spam or a bad email here and there. The emails proved to be more successful than the letters themselves. We had an open rate on the emails of about 57%. According to our communications team who was tracking everything, the open rate, the common open rate in the industry is about 15 to 25%. So email was definitely the more successful method of communication for us. So like Veronica was saying earlier, we reached out to all of the local media outlets for both English and Spanish, TV and radio, and in print, to push all of our stories for Project Led and get the word out to all the customers who may have received these letters. We also posted SAWS Project Led content throughout all of the major social media applications. Out of all the social media apps that we were utilizing, Nextdoor was our most successful one. That one had the what they call impressions, which is essentially views from users. And for those who aren't familiar, the Nextdoor app is sort of like a digital bulletin board for your neighborhood, or depending on which neighborhood you're in, it's also more of a gossip column. So one big takeaway from this experience for me so far was that what might make perfect sense to us in the industry does not always translate well to the public. When we reviewed our letter, we had a bunch of eyes on it, and we read it as, you probably don't have a lead service line, but we can't say for sure without checking. When our customers received the letter, what they read was, you definitely have lead in your water, do not drink the water. So that misunderstanding obviously led to a flood of calls to that dedicated phone line and email inbox. So pictured here is the communication log that we built to help us keep up with all of the customers calling and emailing us. So in the highlighted box is, on the left side is the count and the right side is the date. So when we started this on October 16th from our first received phone call or email to December 9th, we received 2,000 phone calls and emails that we had to respond to, between 3 and sometimes 4 of us. So from October to December, all 3 of us, and then sometimes Monty, we were on the phones all day, every day, or emailing back customers with whatever kind of concern they had about the letter they received. And to put that into perspective, since then, we've just surpassed 2,800. So in those 2 months, we received 2,000. And in those 6 months following, we've only got about 800 in. We heard all different types of issues and concerns and complaints from the customers, and we just wanted to highlight some of the ones that we saw more commonly. So the first one, your interest list form isn't working. I can't find my address. So on the project-led website, we had a online form for customers to go in, locate their address, and use that to fill out the information and let us know they wanted a service line inspection from us. Well, that address locator did not work as well as it should have, or it was very picky how it read addresses. So if a customer lived on 1234 Chestnut Place and they spelled out place on everything that every time they wrote their address, well, that address locator didn't like that. It only wanted you to put PL, and a lot of our customers couldn't figure that out. So a lot of the phone calls and emails we got was having to walk through customers on using that address locator, or most of the time we would just end up doing it for them and signing up for them. My house was built last year. How can I have lead? So a lot of the addresses that we used the tax parcel information that we pulled addresses from didn't always have the build date for a lot of these brand new neighborhoods popping up in and around San Antonio. So a lot of people in houses built in just this year or just last year received these letters from us. And so a lot of them were very concerned, even though we explained in the letter about the lead ban date of 1989 and that there was no concern, but they didn't read that far down the letter. I've always been sick, and now I know it's because of lead in your water. Again, this was just a misinterpretation of the letter by the customer, so we had to kind of explain to them that the letter isn't talking about the quality of the water, it's just it's just your service line that we're concerned about. And the third one there, usually tied into the sixth one, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. So a lot of the people who thought they finally found out why they're so sick were often threatening us with some type of legal action. Most of the time when we got those kinds of calls or emails, we would just direct it to the legal team there at SAWS. I don't think any of them ever went past that. And to this date, I have not yet received a visit or a call from the Texas Hammer. The next one, I received a letter saying that I have lead in my water. Again, just explaining to the customer, you don't have lead in your water. We always refer them to our consumer confidence reports if they didn't believe us, show them that lead contamination is not an issue at SAWS. We're just concerned about your service line. And then from there, we just get them signed up for an inspection. So who's going to pay to replace my service line? This was always an uncomfortable conversation because whenever we would talk to a customer who was convinced that they had a lead service line, even they haven't had any type of inspection done, we would have to explain to them that no one is requiring them to replace the line. So if they wanted it replaced anyways, that would be on the cost of the customer. But we also would explain to them that SAWS was always looking for any type of funding assistance that we could give for our customers who might apply for that or qualify for that. And last, I want my inspection done immediately. So once we finally explained to the customer what SAWS was offering, the free service line inspection, it turns out that they didn't like the sometimes 2 or 3 year wait list that was quickly building for these inspections to be done. We had to explain to the customer how unlikely it was that they had a lead service line or even a GRR line, and tell them that these inspections have to be done for everybody in the city and that it would take some time for us to get to every customer. And if anyone has ever seen the show Parks and Recreation, after taking all these customer calls and emails, I felt very much like Leslie Knope doing their town halls. So after we got this huge influx of phone calls and emails, we realized that we probably need to take a better look at the customer notification letters that we sent. Highlighted in the green box was some of the major edits we made to our notification letters. The first one highlighted a note about newer homes. That first complaint that I said about customers having new homes, why they keep receiving that letter. So we tried to explain a little bit better why they might be receiving that letter, and if their home was built after 1989, there should be no concern of a lead service line. And that definitely helped with a lot of the phone calls and emails that we started receiving. The second one, important information for renters. Another common email and phone call we would receive was, hey, I'm currently renting. I don't know the owner. How can I get this inspection done? So we wanted to make sure they knew their rights and how they can get signed up for the inspection. And then the last, and probably the one that helped the most, was we better explained what exactly we were trying to tell them about their current service line status, letting them know that if their lead status is unknown, we use the two magic words that we decided to use was documented and not documented. So we let customers know if your service line is unknown, it's just because it's not documented. You know, we have very limited records of your own private property, so we can't document what type of service line you have. And these letters helped out. Like I was saying before, when we first sent out the letters, we had 2,000 phone calls and emails, and in the 6 months following, we've only had 800. So we think these better explanations have really helped customers. So as we've been sending out all this public outreach, social media, Project LED, the phone line, and the email inbox, our communications team at SAWS has been helping us track all the data for all of this customer communication. And the biggest trend that we saw was the following months after the initial notification is when we had most of the customer interaction. And we're not sure if it's, just because of how soon after the initial notification went out, or maybe just the time of year and the season. Maybe customers had more time to make these phone calls as opposed to in the spring during spring break, or no one's going to make phone calls during Fiesta in San Antonio, so that probably helped out a lot too. One of the big goals of our public outreach was to get customers to our project-led website and have them sign up on our service line inspection form. When customers would go online and do this, it would let us know that they're interested in getting their service line inspected, and it's helping us get the word out about project-led and getting the community involved in helping us to complete our service line inventory. The interest list online proved to be pretty successful. We had over 12,000 people go online and sign up for their inspection form, or at least call and email us and tell us they were interested, and we would sign them up for them. 80% of those inquiries happened in just October and November. Our phone and email line, like I said before, was also very popular within our community. And then for a lot of our customers who would call and say they want nothing to do with SAWS and they don't want the government on their property, ever, we would refer them to our website also and let them know that if you want, you can self-report your own service line material. There's a lot of DIYers in Texas and in San Antonio, and we would have people tell us, hey, I replaced my service line back in '92 because I had a leak. And say, that's great. You can go online and self-report yourself, or if you want, we can update your service line material for them. We would also include instructions on how to do the inspection, what they should be looking for, or if they wanted to hire a contractor to complete the work for them. And our self-reports, we think is fairly successful. We've had 350 self-reports so far, and in a city of 2 million people, that probably doesn't seem like a lot, but when we think about it, that's 350 inspections that we don't have to go out and do. That's a little over 700 man-hours, and that's somewhere around $400,000 saved on potholes that we don't have to go out and do. So anytime we can get the community involved and self-report their material like that for us, we think is a huge win. And again, the public outreach, another main goal of it for us was we wanted to at least get customers talking and get them going to our project-led website that we created. The project-led website has all the information a customer can need about the project-led letter they received, LCRR, LCRI information. We have links to the TCEQ website about lead service lines, same with any EPA links. It's where a customer can sign up for their free service line inspections, self-report their service line material, and it's also where we have access to our public-facing inventory. Having the website accessible and up and running at the start of Project LED was super important for us, especially because we were sending out these QR codes and running stories on the news and on social media. So when we initially started the program, the mobile site was not working across all platforms. So our IT team at SAWS worked very quickly to make sure it was good on both iOS and Android and any other platforms that customers might use. The mobile site was definitely more important or more used than the desktop site. you know, because most people conduct any and most business on their cell phones nowadays. We had 26,000 customer sites or customer visits to the mobile website. So going forward, you know, public outreach is probably one of our most successful and more important administrative strategies to completing our service line inventory. So and it's not stopping with just initial notifications or annual notifications. It's something that we're continuing at SAWS and on the project-led team. You know, we're continuing to leverage both internal and external stakeholders. On the internal side, we make sure our legal team is still keeping up with the language required for any type of notifications. We're also educating any field crews that are out there with project-led, giving them business cards for any customers that might approach them and ask them about the letter they received in the mail. Same with our customer service teams at SAWS. And our external stakeholders is even more important. We've done several presentations about project-led to different HOAs throughout the city, city council meetings, working with city council themselves so they're informed about it so they can talk to their constituents, and also working with different industry organizations such as SABRE, the San Antonio Board of Realtors. So on this last slide, we're just going to go over some of the lessons that we've learned so far through this project-led journey. So first one was word selection. Make sure you choose your words carefully to avoid a panic. Like I said before, the public is very reactionary, so even though you feel like you've read your letter carefully, read it again, because you never know how someone might interpret what they read. Accuracy counts. Make sure once you put out your publicly available information, make sure that is correct. That was a huge emphasis for us. Even though the material we put out might have been scary, we knew it was accurate. And that was, you know, obviously more important. So following the trends, as I said before, we tracked all of our communication data and what we sent out, who we sent it out to, and when we sent it out. That's important because going forward, we know more or less where to focus our efforts and when to focus them. A timely response. So on that communication log, whenever customers would call and ask us about the project-led letter, when we sent our initial notification, we had a response time that we gave ourselves of 3 business days. That very quickly got away from us, so we changed it to 5 business days, and that also very quickly got away from us in those 2 months. So we still hold ourselves to the 5 business days, and now that phone calls and emails have slowed down, we are back to making sure that we respond to every customer that calls or emails us within those 5 business days. And last but not least, know your community. As I said before, we made sure to put out all of our information in both English and Spanish. And honestly, we've had customers call with other languages as well that we've had to define workarounds for. Yeah, and as far also for knowing your community, know the best time to send out your notifications because of different events that might be going around the city. Yeah, I think that's it for the lessons learned. And if anyone has any questions, we'll be happy to take them at this time. Yeah, I need some.
Can you briefly explain to us the process that you used in reaching out to schools or daycares for the lead service line inventory?
So schools and daycares, we had some customers call and actually ask about schools and daycares, and we've been referring them to TCEQ's website for the community to sign up for school and daycare testing. But I think currently right now we're not that we're not concerned with school and daycare testing, but we're more concerned with the public-facing inventory and starting that. But next year is when we're going to start emphasizing school and daycare testing.
In the beginning of the presentation, you were talking about the meter boxes inspection, like that was included in the replacement program, and you said that it was only 30% successful. Why is that?
Yeah, so we consider an inspection successful if we go in there and we can see either, at least one side, so we can identify one or the other or both. So that would be the definition of what we counted successful. Oftentimes, the meter boxes, you know, if we're not out there the same day, maybe it rains and then we go 2 days later, so that box is already covered back up. So that might be something. One of the other big reasons is because the connectors, you can't really see past the connectors oftentimes. So I'd say probably those are largely the reasons we can't identify beyond the connectors or either side.
I'll also say, to add to that, we were following the AMI replacement process closely to see how we can, increase that success rate. And one thing that we saw was that the vac trucks are going by and they're only clearing out meter boxes enough for the technician to replace the AMI, the meter itself. Us doing our meter box inspection was not really their main concern. So we actually talked about, well, can they spend an extra minute clearing that box so it's, a little bit cleaner for a little bit longer? And after we added up, a minute at each station per day added up very quickly, and that got costly. So we kind of just kept it as what it is, and did as many meter boxes inspections as we could.